Hello everyone and welcome back to my Dark Souls guide on how to get good, if you will. Right now we're going to go ahead and cover the initial training section, or at least the starter area of the game. I don't plan on going into too much detail about the specifics along the way, at least not in the very beginning, and that's really because I want to focus on survival, getting the ropes. It's best to learn obviously how to walk before you run. So in this particular case, we're picking up from where we left off just a few minutes ago. I have our character here created. It's a bit more of the all-around warrior with various options. If you have any questions or you're wondering why I'm picking these or what's the master key all about, gifts, etc., you can go view my previous video I've already uploaded to YouTube for character creation. So we're going to choose accept and then OK. Now there is quite a bit of a story involved here, but I want to leave that for people to enjoy on their own. This is not to ruin, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Just leave it alone. Alright, great. So we started off at the very beginning at something called the Northern Undead Asylum. For the moment, just think of it as a nice area to learn how to play the game. Now, I personally play on the computer, however, I use a PlayStation 4 controller. That's my own personal choice. Really, you can use any controller you want. I like this one because I feel the button responses are easy, doesn't take as much pressure, and with my own personal hands, it's kind of the easiest to work with. Usually the next best controller is either the Xbox 360 or the Xbox One. I won't go over the controls of the game, that's a bit more... a manual can cover that, so we won't go over all the details of it, but we'll talk a little bit maybe about good methods of switching quickly or more advanced features, but for now, we'll skip past how to press a button. So, you start off, obviously, you're stuck here in a jail cell, and you get the ability to pick up a corpse's item. It's just the key to get out, nothing major. Just walk up to the door and choose to open it. Now, you'll notice early on, in the bottom left-hand side, you've got your 4 separate boxes. Each one of those represents different kinds of things that are equipped onto your character. We'll go into more as time goes along, but for the moment you only need to be worried about the sword, which looks to be quite broken, and if you look in your hand it is broken. Now, this does almost no damage. It's not meant to be much to learn off of, but it can be helpful at the very beginning. As you walk along, the first enemies really don't do too much to try to hit you. They don't even strike you. Although if you want to try to learn the mechanics, you can. These little claw marks, if you will, on the ground are basically messages left by the developers. They teach you the basics of the game. Not just controls, but tactics, like if you hear something crazy, be on the lookout. Things like that. I would recommend reading them the very first time. They might be a little vague, but they'll always be helpful. Players can also leave those messages as they move along, so you might get some that try to fool you. A little bit different, but it is an enjoyable experience. Now, me personally, I don't usually attack these guys along the way, but I'll go and demonstrate it now. It's usually pretty simple, just your basic attack, nothing too fancy, and they go down without much effort. They do give you a slight amount of souls, but nothing that'll really benefit you in the long run. I'll cover over souls, what they mean, things like that as we kind of continue along, but for now you don't need to be too worried. We could keep killing these, but truthfully, it's not as much fun, so we'll kind of keep going past. Now, the warrior class does start off with your basic armor, and of course that low-quality weapon, and the ability to, run, do some minor dodging, as I mentioned. As you can see, it's a little slow. You usually don't want to have a slow rolling experience, but it is good. Now, I'm kind of moving along, as you can see. You can just tell there's a natural path that comes to the right, as well as a set of stairs. Most of this is stuff I'm sure you already completely know as a gaming individual, but we'll still go over it. Very top of the stairs, we've got another message, just talking about, hey, if you rest here at this bonfire, you're going to recover anything that you've taken as far as a hit along the way. Also, at the same time, you can refill any of your Estus funds. We'll go over that later. Pretty standard stuff. Now, once you open this door, everything looks pretty normal. But, of course, it's not. If you've played this far, you'll notice that there's very much a tense situation that pops up right away. Get away. It's your very first boss. Now, if you watch my character statistic guide, you'll notice that it talks about the option for choosing whether or not you wish to kill him early on with black fire bombs. I personally don't want to do that here today, so what we do is literally just get away. Notice my roll was a little bit off. I did get smacked, and that's mostly just because normally by now I either take my armor off or I wear something that's a little bit lighter. Of course, we did take a hit, which, truthfully, is helpful to demonstrate. If we come back over here, we can light the bonfire, sit down, we're back to full health. Now, one thing I will mention is that when you sit at a bonfire, you do respawn or make all of the enemies in the game that you've killed come back. So, only use that if you're really ready to start over, or at the very least, make your way permanently through the game. Another quick message just talks about picking up some of your items. There is an archer here right off the bat, and if you're not careful, he's going to hit you a few times. So let's come over here to opening up the cores. Most of the stuff is pretty standard. I personally hit the menu button in the middle to pull up, and then we'll choose to change equipment, and let's put on our items. Now, traditionally, the icon just represents, this is for your weapon, that's for your shield. Pretty simple stuff. In this case, I don't want to take that sword off, so we'll just equip the shield on the shield line. And there you go. It's on your hand. Now, the benefit of this shield is it's quite powerful in that it's light, but it does technically block all damage. So if I stand out here, you're not going to take any damage. Now, you do technically lose stamina, but that's something that will go over time rather than focus on here right now. For now, we just want to survive and get out. So the next corpse has a longsword. That's a permanent replacement to the one we had before, and it's drastically better. Not just number-wise, but in almost every way. So let's go ahead and equip it. Well, now that we're facing an enemy that can actually fight back, let's actually just start this from the get-go. Let's approach this from a more tactical point of view, even though we clearly have the advantage on him. As you'll notice, he can charge, move, and he try to be intelligent about striking us. So, since there is no pause mechanic in Dark Souls, it's very important to think on your feet and remember past experiences. As he's an archer and we have a shield, it's best to just approach him slowly. You can lock onto enemies, traditionally by clicking on the right stick, although the platform may vary. And you can focus and just walk forward and wait for the right moment. A lot of combat in Dark Souls is based on timing, the moment, learning when it's best to strike. For example, I know when he's going to shoot me with the bow, so half the time he can just fire off a shot and I'll dodge it. So it's important to wait for the attack, and once it's finished, then follow up with something thorough. You'll notice, even though it was close, I was still able to block his attack. Sometimes the animation of the game is a little imperfect. Whenever you go through a white door here, there is a bit of an effect, but we're going to save that for a later time to describe. You could go left here. It would lead you towards an area you'll notice is blocked off. I'll let you say that through your own experience, so instead we'll go right. Now here there's a little bit of a hidden type experience. If you walk all the way up this path, you'll notice there's a bit of a ball in the way. You can either walk up a little bit and then run down, or just... Even though the game doesn't tell you, the natural progression here is to come inside, and you want to talk to this individual. I'm going to skip over his dialogue because I believe it's important to say the story for you. But essentially, he provides you with the main point of the story of the game, meaning moving forward. You'll also notice that we look kind of creepily dead. If you watch the cinematic, you'll understand a little bit more of why that's the case. You'll also notice that we now have the Estus flask at the bottom of the screen. That's essentially like a health potion that naturally refills whenever you sit down at a bonfire, but there are other ways to go ahead and obtain it. You start off with 5, and to use that, you just simply press whatever buttons on your controller. For me, it's square. At the top of the stairs here, we've got another enemy, this time with a sword. He may catch you off guard if you're not ready. But that sword is very useful in that you can kind of sit behind it and just potentially take quite a bit of damage without really ever having a problem. Now this creature can be quite lethal if you're not prepared to block or if he catches you off guard. For an example, this strike right here deals quite a bit of damage, can potentially stun you or even knock you down. But with the shield, it's no problem. So wait, strike when the moment's right. And he's dead. Not too complicated. By talking to that previous knight, he gave us the key to open this door, which allows us to progress. If you want to, you can technically run back down the stairs, come over here, and open up this too, which would lead you back through. Obviously the boss is in there though, so you want to be careful. But let's go ahead and head back up the stairs, come up to the very top, and start walking forward. It's never a bad idea to be slow or deliberate with your movement. There could be someone around the corner at any one given moment. And you'll notice actually there is someone up here. So having your shield up is not a bad idea. There's actually 2 close range enemies. And as you can hear, an archer off to the side. A good tactic for surviving events like this, where you have multiple targets, is to try to split them up. For example, I'm baiting this guy by getting close and keeping my shield up, so if he does squeeze in a hit, I'm safe. And once they're separated, take them on one at a time. First guy is down, and here we are. Ooh, as you can see here, I wanted to demonstrate a mechanic. You do need to be careful. When you are playing the game, if you choose to strike in the middle of a hallway, you may potentially hit the door, or a hallway. If you do so, oftentimes you won't hit anything, and instead will simply receive the damage the opponent tries to send you. As you can see, there are alternative attacks where you can even just accomplish nothing. So it's important to be careful when you're fighting in close quarters. Up here, of course, we have another archer. Let's use the same tactic. Get up close, block his arrows, and give him a nice good stab. Or slash in this case. Now, I could walk through this white doorway here, where it's kind of a misty effect, or I can keep exploring. Oftentimes it's important to keep exploring. Not only are you learning new details about the game and getting a chance to practice, but it also sometimes will give you quite a bit of a benefit when it comes to souls, experience, or getting a new item. If we come in here, you'll notice there's actually a stronger enemy. You can tell he's got a shield, proper weapon, and even a helmet. Plus a little bit of a red eye effect, which looks kind of cool. He's not too difficult to face, but you should be prepared. As before, this is an all-around experience, so we want to take advantage of that shield. So we'll walk up, see what he has to do. It's not a bad idea to learn what kind of strikes your enemy will try against you. Slow wind-up stab, smack you with a shield, slow wind-up stab, all sorts of stuff. So there's quite a bit of options for just learning everything about them. So slow wind-up stab, I can get behind, and bam. Slow wind-up stab, bam, bam, bam. Now you'll notice that the green stamina bar does go down every time. That represents how often you can strike, or how often you can actually kill something, what kind of damage you can take, how much you can block. That stamina bar is quite helpful, and so it's important to learn as much as you can about it. But we'll go into that a bit more later. You also might notice while I was standing back and describing, you drink a health potion. So it's something where you do need to keep in mind the enemies are intelligent. Let's go ahead and finish him off though. So that guy's down. And there is a door here. Let's try to open it. Although as you can see, it's locked. You'll be able to come back and worry more about that later, but I'll leave the story for you. So really our only path for moving forward is this white gate right here. Now once I open it, you might notice we're essentially very similar to where we were with the boss, and you can kind of even hear him. If you walk out on this platform, you'll be right above him. Now Dark Souls is kind of deceivious, and they're just deceiving, rather, in that it can present you with a situation where you think, oh, I'll be safe. But sometimes you're not. For example, I'm going to walk right through, and if I'm not careful, he's going to strike me. But if I am careful, I can jump off and deal a quick surprise attack, taking off a huge portion of his damage. Now from here, it starts to get scary. As you can see, he is massive. Not only can he deal a crazy amount of damage, but you're in quite a bit of a risk. Potentially you're going to die here many times at first. But don't lose your cool. Let's use some of the same tactics that we've realized before. Even though he's got a big hammer, you've got a nice shield. Sure, you were knocked to the ground, but you didn't take any actual damage. Took a lot of stamina, but you were okay. So if you need to, take advantage of that shield. So, struck him in the back. Moving around him, taking advantage of the fact that he's a really big guy. As part of stamina management that I mentioned before, it's important to realize you can only swing so much, so often. Pace yourself. That's the best way to win. Pace yourself until you learn all the mechanics. Take advantage of things like size, speed, distance, everything you can to win. Or in this case, just watching him do what he does. A creature can only do so many things, and not everything in the world. So once you've memorized what takes him a long time to do, or what takes you very little time to do, you can throw out quite a bit of punishment. Another potential thing to understand here is there are different types of attacks. I've been slashing, now I can stab. That does take a little bit more stamina, but it has a longer reach and does more damage. Something to consider for in the future. Every weapon has its own moveset, or way of learning how to move forward. And so it's important to realize that when you pick a weapon, so that way you don't get caught off guard. And that is the end of the assignment game. Just continue practice, focusing on the right areas, and just really thinking about what you're doing. Sometimes just good old-fashioned memorization can help. You'll see we're picking up a variety of different items here right off the bat, but we'll go and focus on what each one of these means in a separate video. For now, just go ahead and hit OK, and you've done quite a bit. If you've made it this far, you've killed the very first boss in the game. Not an easy thing to do, and you've gained quite a bit of souls, as you can see on the bottom right. So for now, you'll notice he gave me a key, which actually opens this downstairs door in the back, and allows us to leave. You will come back to this area in the future. There's some potential pretty neat things, but for the moment there's something we want right now. And that's if you come up here, along the steps, and about halfway up, go and stop, turn to the left, kind of come down this windy path, but be careful not to fall off. Definitely don't want to fall here. It will result in your death. And then come over to this corpse and pick up its item. It's actually a very small amount of souls that you can use or hold on to for down the road. Here on the right-hand side, and it's a bit more difficult to reach, but equally important, there's a ledge that you can walk around. Now this area is technically a bird's nest, but while you can't see them very easily, there are birds here that will respond to you if you give them certain items. For example, you can drop herbs or some types of things that we'll leave a secret for now that can give you potentially very powerful things down the road. Kind of a secret egg, but something to consider in the future. Be careful though, because you do not want to fall off, and if you do, you will die. So let's go ahead and head up the stairs. And you can run, you can walk, you can do whatever you like. Just head all the way up, and a story sequence will begin. I won't ruin that for you, but let's go ahead and skip over it. Load through the game, skip over that, and we're at the very first section. The very first actual session for the long experience of the game, your main town, what you're going to be doing throughout. That's going to be the end of this video here right now. It's just a quick run through, basic details, what to focus on. From here on out, I'm going to start focusing on specific things to learn. A bit more of a, as you're walking out, setting up kind of thing. So that's going to be the end of this video here right now. If you want to make sure you're safe, go ahead and just rest here at the bonfire. And then you can leave, and we'll begin moving forward at that point. But for now, it's the end of the video. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down in the comments section. You can reach out to me through message. If you like this video, if you want to hit a like, if you want to subscribe for future learning videos, not just for Dark Souls, but for speed runs, for other types of experiences, and just learning in general, you can hit the subscribe button. And I will see you here next time. Have fun!